Hey, welcome to episode 18, Yessons, Rapping and Remixing. I'm Dan Schinder.
And I'm Stephen Schinder.
And this is going to be fun, but before we get into these two really interesting albums, Steve, we've got news and we've got some listeners slash viewers slash fan comments from posts and emails. Let's start with that. Or actually, news. Yeah, let's start with the news, the Quest update.
Yeah, so here on Yesshift, for those who might be new, we love talking about Yes, but we also love talking about stuff that's tangentially related to Yes, whether it be through musicians who played with them on certain albums, or even what like we're talking about in this episode, a couple sons of a couple Yes members. In this case, Damion Anderson and the late Virgil Howe. They released a couple things in different eras that are kind of
separately.
Separately. That are kind of outside of what you and I, Dad, would normally gravitate toward. So it was a fun little detour. So we'll get to those. The reason was their birthdays are on similar day, like they're a day apart, but obviously different years, or maybe not obviously, I don't know. But yeah, so I thought that'd be a fun thing to do. But yeah, before we get to that, we'll start with the news. So this comes from Inside Out Music, of course, Yes's label at the moment, who say, due to unforeseen manufacturing issues, the US physical release of the new Yes official album, The Quest, will be delayed. The worldwide digital release of the album will remain on the 1st of October. The US release for the 2 CD Digipack Limited Deluxe Box and Art Book will be on the 15th of October, and the standalone vinyl will be released on the 17th of December.
It was quite a delay.
Yeah, well, I'll say what just came to mind when I finish the rest of the announcement. But yeah, this does not affect the release outside of the US, where the physical release date will remain 1st of October. The Yes World / Manhead merch store will still be shipping their stock as soon as product is received. As such, customers who pre-ordered via the shop will receive their order on or before October 15th. We are very sorry for any inconvenience caused, and we are doing our best to get the album in your hands ASAP. So, couple things. It's a delay, but I feel like in this world we've been in, I'm used to movies now being delayed several months or even a year. So 2 weeks for the physical release in the US, that's nothing to
That's
me.
true.
And especially since we're still getting the digital release on October 1st. So we should be able to still listen to the album at the beginning of that month, which just a week away. Wow.
And review it.
Yeah.
And see crazy comments online.
Yeah.
Oh boy. What a bleep storm some of that is. I won't get into that now though.
Right, yeah. But I mean, regardless of what lots of people are saying, some are looking forward to it, some not so much, but I pre-ordered the Blu-ray art book version, so I'm really looking forward to receiving that whenever it comes. But of course, whenever it drops on digital, I'll definitely listen to that. I assume that'll be on Yes's YouTube and Spotify and stuff like that. Because it's been a long wait, and we're just really eager to listen to the whole album. So yeah, that's the Quest. Do you have any other thoughts about that before we segue into this next thing?
I wish there was a little more of an explanation. I wonder if it's contractual. I wonder if it's materials. I wonder if the new AC/DC album is in the way and they're behind that, or something crazy like that. Or if someone says, let's wait till right before the holidays. I doubt that's what it is. I'm sure everyone's eager to make a few bucks on it.
Right. Like they said, it's a manufacturing issue. I'm just wondering, what
that's so broad,
issue
though, and vague. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe they need extra time to add Muckman's credit to the booklet. I don't know. Probably
Oh
not.
boy.
But
Yeah, they got to redo all the artwork now. The graphic.
yeah,
Didn't think of that.
that's kind of become a meme now, along with like Eddie Jobson and whatnot. But yeah, so
How funny.
yeah, but so the next news item concerns a book written by Stephen Lambe with Dave Watkinson. Well, it says by Stephen Lambe with Dave Watkinson, and so we came across this post thanks to Dave Watkinson on Facebook. It was like shared around. So do you want to go ahead and read this?
Yeah, this is really interesting, and I love how this is written because uh, it really gives perspective to what happened with Yes in the 80s, especially for us old enough to remember many years forward now. And looking back, it's kind of like, oh yeah, oh yeah. So the new Yes book is now ready to order. Yes in the 80s takes a look at Yes with its various lineups and releases in what was an extremely successful decade, covering a prolific music time, not only for Yes with such albums as Drama, 90125, I'll throw in Big Generator, even though it's not listed, but its ex-members solo and in bands as well, such as ABWH, Asia, Cinema, XYZ. I'm glad they included that. Rick Wakeman and Jon Anderson solo albums had really big albums that decade. And Jon, of course, with keyboard legend, and I'll throw in composer Vangelis, who he had recorded with many years before the 80s, but in the 80s, I can't think of the one.
75, yeah.
Yeah. Really great stuff. Trevor Rabin and Trevor Horn would come together to make a new Yes sound that would shock Yes fans. That's never happened. That would shock Yes fans, yet make Yes a household name. It is Yes, of course, so change would happen. New members, artwork, logo, and a completely different sounding albums that would bookend the decade. I love how that's put, because like that wouldn't occur to me, unless I read that. It's like, oh yeah, and immediately you go to those albums. Stephen Lambe, am I pronouncing that correctly? Lambe?
It's Stephen Lambe, I believe.
Lambe, I'm sorry. Stephen Lambe. Sorry.
Holy Lambe. No, okay.
No, it's Holy Lambe.
Yeah.
Takes us on a thoughtful journey through albums and tours, with David Watkinson adding stories from the decade, a forward, and a huge amount of visual material. That's my thing. In the 32 pages of pictures. I can't wait to see that. I love seeing pictures from my favorite bands that I've never seen before. Yeah. And as long as Yes and Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, some of my favorite bands have been around, I'm still seeing a lot of photos I've never seen before. And I love that. It's like, who's had these? Like, at what bottom of whose sock drawer were these sitting before they got finally scanned?
Yeah, between two comic books. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. October 29th publication, December in the USA. The signed copies from Burning Shed only. You can also pre-order from Amazon or wherever you get books. The old cover may still be up in some places. It is the one that will be published. And if you're watching the visual version of this episode, which we call a vlog as opposed to the podcast, there's the cover right there, which is cool. And there's already actually there's like 3 pictures I've never seen, even just on the cover. Very cool. I will get this. I can't wait to get this. If I could just, if you don't mind, harken back in the context of being there, and then I have a question for you, having been exposed later. When word first came out of 90125, people said it was accidentally published that Trevor Horn was the guitar player. And I thought, I don't think that's right. And then Owner of a Lonely Heart came out and stuff, and you saw that it's this Trevor Rabin, who was 28, 29 at the time. And then we learned that Trevor Horn produced it. But yeah, the cover, so just like Bob Seska's cover for Magnification, how that really encapsulated that music and something different, that cover art and logo and the sheen on the vinyl, I have the vinyl, the whole look of that was way into the future. And you got to understand, being back there in time, as I guess with every decade, the 80s was like the future. It's like we were here. And in a lot of ways, because a lot of things were changing musically, hair metal was just being sort of born and popular, the hairspray, Aquanet, and spandex. But then you had the skinny tie side of life with new wave and things like that. Duran Duran, Tears for Fears, bands like that were huge. Cyndi Lauper, you know, the Thompson Twins. I can go on and on. And here was Yes with this new album, new look, graphically and physically as members. And I didn't know what to expect, but it just blew my mind. Once again, Trevor Horn with production chops that just were like, took us into the future. The music was great. The tour was amazing. I have nothing negative to say about it. So my question to you, and for those of you who don't know, if you follow the show, I'm sorry if you get tired of hearing us say some of the same things over and over. But for people who haven't heard this, I think it's important contextually to know that I'm the dad, Stephen's the son. We're 31 years apart. I happen to be older. And my question, Steve, is in your Yes journey, when you were older and started listening to Yes, where in the path did the drama and 90125 Big Generator, we won't worry about all the rest of the catalog for that decade, but just those three, you know, where did those come along? Because I think, well, I know. I think that 9012 Live, the movie, was your first exposure to Yes, now that I think of it, right?
Right.
Yeah, because you were like you were 3 or 4, probably 3, and used to act out the whole film with a toy guitar.
Yeah.
And half the time you were Trevor, half the time you were Chris. You had all the moves down. It was really cool.
Would use a blanket as a cape or something.
Right, right. And like a lot of kids who get stuck in a movie, like my granddaughter Sky, when she was young, Frozen. It was our poor daughter Sudie had to watch Frozen 30 times a day. Alex with 101 Dalmatians and Fantasia. That's my son, Stephen's brother.
Yeah,
but Steve, brother. It was Monty Python and the Holy Grail and 9012 Live.
Yeah, over and also Yes Years.
Yeah. And Yes Years when it came out. Yeah. So as you got older and started to more, I'll say, coherently listen to the Yes catalog, where was that and where does that sit in Yes's music for you? Because our perspectives are completely different. I was a Yes fan for 14, 15, 16 years before 90125 came out.
Right. So I've mentioned, so I'll try to go through the things I mentioned before real quickly. So I started collecting like 2002. I got the extended versions CD, which is basically a truncated version of the live stuff on Keys to Ascension. They got the compilation album Highlights the Very Best of Yes in 2003, I want to say. And
he was 8, by the way, when he started this quest.
Yeah, no and so 2003 was also the year that Rhino was releasing these expanded and remastered Yes albums on CD from the first album to 90125, like from 2003 to 2004. And so for my 9th birthday, you got me Relayer and Going for the One. And I think the next one I got after that was, I think it honestly was 90125 in 2004. And at that time, like, that was my favorite of the Yes albums that I'd listened to and that I had. Like, I was just still really into the 80s stuff. And
so then, how did Relayer hit you? Being that you watched the 9012 live stuff so much, and then I said, here's Relayer, son, and a magic mushroom. Yeah. Oh wait, you won't need the mushroom, just listen to Relayer.
Right. Yeah. Well, again, like I've said before, because of Yes Years and live at QPR and stuff like that, I was already familiar with some of the 70s sound. Like, I knew the 80s sound and the 70s sound pretty well. But listening to Gates of Delirium in full was quite something. And like I mentioned, maybe this is on an episode that hasn't come out yet, but on Gates of Delirium, like as a kid hearing the burn their children's after on to hell, it was like, oh, Yes said a bad word, and I didn't know what to think, but then I quickly got over it.
It was in the Epics. It's the Epics episode we haven't put out yet.
Right, yeah. But yeah, like for a time,
Yes, a bad word.
Like for a time, like the Raven, yes, like with 90125 and even Big Generator, like I loved listening to that stuff more so than some of the 70s stuff. But
essentially
older,
that was your
it's kind of flipped. Yeah, like it's kind of flipped as I've gotten older. Like I appreciate all the different eras, but if it's like mid 70s, yes is like my favorite yes now. But I really appreciate like the evolution still, and there was an evolution in lots of prog rock bands. Well, at least the few that I'm familiar with.
No, I think that's true.
Yes, Genesis, Asia had prog rock musicians. Like they had to go through this pop phase in the 80s, and then in the 90s there was like a prog rock renaissance. Like they kind of, some of them kind of returned to that.
Even Gentle Giant did the same thing. Gentle Giant got more, I hate to use this term, folks, mainstream, and chime in on everything we're talking about. Give us your take on all this, but you're right. Jethro Tull did it with the album A. Yes did it with Tormato and Going for the One, and then moving into the 80s with the Rabin years. Pink Floyd with The Wall in 79 and moving forward. We can go on, and then
yeah, The Wall was more of that punk era, but yeah, it was kind of different.
Yeah, and then like you said, it all sort of circled back. I'm still waiting for Bell Bottoms to come back, but whatever. Cool.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm interested in this book, and like you mentioned, there are a few photos that are unfamiliar. Like there's this weird, I think that's Rick in this strange outfit, if I'm not
mistaken. He's like a fourth musketeer or something.
Yeah,
a troubadour.
And it's like when it comes to just Yes, you think of the 80s and there are only those 3 studio albums and touring in between. But if you think of the stuff that Yes members and ex-Yes members at the time were doing throughout that decade, it's still like a lot of activity. So I'm really curious to see how this book documents all that. I might just need to get one of these.
You know, something you just mentioned, those 3 studio albums, and to me, strangely, maybe more than any, I'm running through their catalog in my head, maybe more than any other Yes album, even though Drama came out in 1980, the same decade, of course, as 90125 and Big Generator. I think Drama stands alone outside any other Yes album that's most unrelated to others, because like Relayer is just weird, but it kind of is a cousin to Tales and Close to the Edge. Close to the Edge, when it came out, might have been that one standalone, but then I think Drama in a way is so unrelated to things on either side of it. Would you agree?
Yeah, I can see that. Like it definitely has some of the classic Yesness within it, but also feels fresh and new, which in a way makes it feel a little bit like some of the 80s stuff that would follow. But then 90125 is still, it feels starkly different from Drama, despite being like both of those feeling more 80s than what had come before.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. So we're both excited about that book. Chime in, folks. And folks, when you get the book, maybe we'll do an episode reviewing the book, and we'd love to get your feedback, cool. Folks. Yeah, that would be cool. And then I'm so glad that Steve got this from an email from one of our fans. I hope he's a fan anyways. Jeff Williams. This goes back to a few episodes ago. I brought up the fact that I thought I had seen an article in 1980 on the Drama Tour that Yes had broken Led Zeppelin's record of selling out 8 consecutive shows at Madison Square Garden. And someone wrote in, it might have been Brian Harris.
Brian Harris, yeah.
Yeah, wrote in saying, no, that's not a thing. And I thought,
like they only played 3 consecutive ones on
and he named the shows, and I looked it up and on the tour schedule, and he was right. So I thought, man, what am I remembering incorrectly? And I gotta say, it's been bugging me for what's it been like
like
a month and a half?
at least.
Yeah, a couple months maybe. It's been bugging me, and lo and behold, as soon as Stephen sent me these show notes and I saw this photo that we're showing right now, I'm like, that's it. But why did I remember it so differently? So what it refers to is the 16 sellouts, referring to 16 consecutive sellouts over several tours. I just didn't remember it that way. And you could see that Jeff Downs and Trevor Horn are kind of like, okay, yeah, I guess I'll accept this, even though I've never been on any of the other tours.
Yeah, I didn't really get a close look at their faces until now, but yeah, they do look kind of
a little awkward.
Yeah, they look a little awkward, which is kind of suitable. They're the new guys, yeah.
Jeff Downs has this real sheepish look, and Trevor Horn's looking over to someone else like, can we go now? Can you just give me the hook? Can we go now?
Yeah, like they feel for an hour.
Yeah, for something they may felt not quite worthy about. But it's just like a football team. If you're on a football team and you're on the Miami Dolphins and up to the point where they hadn't lost a game in that season, but you're the new guy and you only played one game, you're still getting that award. You're still getting the ring if you win the Super Bowl. So that's how I equate that, if that makes any sense. But Jeff Williams, great find. I don't know why I remember it so differently.
Yeah.
Well, it was 1980, so.
Yeah, and yeah, Forgotten Yesterdays shows that, up to that point, Yes played 16 shows at Madison Square Garden. I think they played several more since then, but
oh yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move into the Yessons segment of this, and we're going to start with Damion Anderson's album called "Close to the Hype."
Right. Now this is actually a single, but yeah, go on.
And Steve had heard this, I think, long before I did, and says he played it for me. This happens all the time, and I don't remember. I got a lot going on, okay? And then so he sent it to me, and I was like, I don't remember this.
Yeah, I think like in 2009 or something, we got it off of eBay. I have the CD right here.
Oh,
yeah, it's like really rare, and it's like, yeah, and it has 4 tracks on it. So, I'll go ahead and like look at what the tracks are called.
Do you still have a device that plays those things?
Yeah, I put them on my PlayStation 3.
There you go.
Yeah, so PlayStation 3 is still getting some use. So yeah, obviously, Damion Anderson, son of Jon Anderson, born September 22nd, 1972. So that would have been just 9 days after Close to the Edge came out, and which is kind of funny. He makes this single in 92. Well, Discogs says it was released 92 in the UK, and then 94 again in the UK and other territories.
So he was 20 when he did this.
Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah. So the tracks, they're all titled "Close to the Hype," but the second, third, and fourth tracks in parentheses say Black Ink Mix, Instrumental, and Close to the Skunk Mix. Yeah, and so the ones that are available online, we found the main version, Close to the Hype, on YouTube, but also if you search Damion Anderson on YouTube and on Spotify, the version that's under his name is the Close to the Skunk Mix. So the differences between these are, well, like the Close to the Skunk Mix, the big difference that I was able to hear is that it's missing the synthesizer part that goes like...
Oh, go. I'm sorry, give them an overall, like, what genre is this album? Is it house music?
Yeah, this single, I guess it's a rap single.
Yeah, it's more of a rap, yeah.
Yeah, like, house music is a genre that I've only heard about within the last year or so. So I don't really know what constitutes house music. But yeah, it's basically rapping, and Damion's dad Jon guests on it. Um, on this, his Damien's name is spelled Damion, but for some reason on Spotify and YouTube it's spelled Ian. I don't know if he changed the spelling of his name like John did all those years ago,
Huh.
um, but yeah, so yeah, we got this on eBay and I remember playing it to you in 2009, and you're like, I could imagine dancing to this, or something like that. But what were your thoughts, like re-listening to what we were able to find?
And I don't dance, by the way, folks, much. Uh, so because I didn't remember listening to it, it was not what I expected. It really took me by surprise, but I appreciated how unexpected it was, I guess is the best way to put it. The production's great. I think the idea is very creative. I think his work on it is great. I really do. How about you?
Yeah, like this definitely sounds like music of that time.
That's true.
Because the lyric, like I think it's cool how he seems really into it when he's singing. And
And
there
he
are
sounds great.
Yeah, like he doesn't sound like John, but he doesn't need to. Like their voices make a good contrast, I think. And like you'd hear John singing "Close to the Hype Down by the River," or you'd hear him sing like a little bit of "Owner of a Lonely Heart," like "Move Yourself." And there are all these like callbacks to other Yes songs, like Damien would sing "and you and I and me and you," and like "Heart of the Sunrise" was in there somewhere, like those words, and "Leave it all up to me," and he also says "brothers of mine," like that ABWH song was. And so it kind of reminds me of that ABWH song Quartet, where it had like those
Yeah.
lyrics that
The
was straight up
vignettes.
the Yes songs.
Yeah,
um and so yeah, it's kind of like an Easter egg hunt for me in that
that's true.
sense.
That's a great way to put it. You're right.
Yeah, and as far as like it's not my genre, but it feels like it does belong to like it feels at home with that type of music. Maybe there are words here and there that kind of date it a little bit. Like I'm trying to remember what the thing is that John keeps repeating. Um,
You mentioned it, and I don't remember either.
Yeah, hey, let me just look at this
Yeah, and
one.
folks, I'm going to read some fans' thoughts while you look that up. Okay.
Okay.
So Fiona Stacy says, "I have this. It's great." Duncan Finlayson says, "I have it. One of the tracks was okay." Wendell Wiggins says, "I like it, especially John's chorus and the keys to this jam and groove." Philip, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Well, I know I got Philip right. I mean, the last name, Philip Jargon, maybe, or Gargan, says, "Nice. I've never heard this before. It reminds me of The Shaman. Jon Anderson should have worked with them. They had a similar spacey, spiritual lyric vibe." Cool. Uh, Cliff Dykes says, "Got this when it first came out. Use it in part of my trivia game soundtracks for a while." Wow, that's cool. And Tomas Howie says, "Extremely hard to find. I'm glad I picked up a copy when it was first released." And Christopher
I think
Acornero.
yeah, I wasn't sure if it's a Cornero or a Chornero, but I mean,
Okay.
maybe one of those is fine, but
Provides a link, and it says Jon Anderson versus Deep Floresta. This is my favorite John experimental dance track.
yeah, that's
Oh,
from Deseo Remixes, which I guess has remixes of songs from John's 1993 or 4 solo album Deseo, which is very Latin American influenced, if I remember correctly. I actually have the original Deseo on CD somewhere over here, but yeah, I've never given that remix album a full listen. But I remember the thing that John sings that sounds kind of dated.
oh,
Like he sings gonna make it real, gonna make you feel all right. Like that kind of sounds dated to me. Or I don't know if people still sing like that in the rap genre these days, because again, I'm not that familiar with it. But
Yeah.
yeah, like it does definitely sound of that time. But like like we said, I could imagine this being in like a dance party type of thing. And I'll just briefly go through like little differences I noticed between these versions of the tracks. So the Black Ink mix has a longer instrumental intro and also adds like this part that's like do 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 and like a nice little
Yeah.
interlude. Again, it's hard to describe because my mouth isn't can't emulate like every single sound or whatever, but yeah, and it's like 7.5 minutes long, which is longer than like these 4 minute tracks. The instrumental version is like it's almost instrumental, except it still has like the recurring Jon singing "Move yourself" and "Close to the hype down by the river" and that type of stuff, but it doesn't have Damion singing except at the beginning it was like yeah or whatever it is that he yells.
Yeah.
And the and the Close to the Skunk mix, the biggest difference I noticed was that it omits the synth sound that goes like do 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 do, like it omits that for some reason. But yeah, it's definitely a rare single. It's not something I've listened to much. Like I like listening to it now was my first time listening to it in like 12 years or something. But yeah, I think it's interesting how Damion took something that it's inspired by stuff that his dad sang, and he basically tried making it his own thing. And it's really interesting seeing how not just when Yes members' relatives do this sort of stuff, but also when other fans do things that are inspired by Yes, but they try to make it very different, but you can still kind of see traces of like where that came from.
Yeah. And there's two more bits of fan feedback that lead us into the next album. Jimmy Miller says, interesting. Have you ever given Virgil Howe's Yes Remixes a listen? I love that album. The Verge, referring to Virgil, did an outstanding job on that album. He got contributions from Jon and his dad, of course. I think you'll find it very interesting. We sure did. We'll get to that in a moment. As commented, John Bobo Bolenberg, he says, I prefer The Verge's Yes Remixes album. The Verge is, of course, Virgil Howe, the deceased son of Steve Howe. So we move into that album, in fact. And one more thought from a fan is, or you go ahead and read that, Steve.
Yeah, there are actually two more thoughts, but yeah, so we're moving to Yes Remixes from Virgil Howe, born September 23rd, 1975. Unfortunately passed away September 11th, 2017 from a heart attack. But yeah, we remember his music fondly. I actually have the CD of the album he did with his dad titled Nexus, and it's really good. Maybe someday
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Yeah, I think you'd really like it. It's
I thought you were gonna say, yeah, I played it for you back in. I want to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I've sent you the music video of one of the songs when it first came out, but that was like 4 years ago, so who knows? But yeah. So getting back to Yes Remixes. Stuart Dummett says, I really enjoyed this album and its fresh take on Yes classics. I would truly enjoy hearing what didn't make it onto the disc and the other music he created. Time for me to visit/revisit the other projects he mentioned. Lots of talent in that family. Yeah, in the post that we shared, I mentioned a few other Steve Howe albums he guested on. And William Edmondson said, been a while since I listened to it, but it's an enjoyable album, and I'm glad that material from Drama was included. So, yeah, remixes came out in 2003. So it was around that time that the Rhino remasters of Yes albums were coming out. Like there's lots of stuff coming out, but I feel like this one kind of flew under the radar, or maybe doesn't get remembered as much when people look back on that period. But yeah, we came across what the liner notes say. Did you want to read that, Dad?
Yeah, and then we'll give our takes on this. And folks, if you're familiar with the album and have heard it, well, you would have heard it if you're familiar with it, write in and give us your takes. And we encourage others to check this out. It's very interesting. We'll get into that after the track listing or during the track listing. But the liner notes say, the idea started out after I megged up my Akai MPC 2000 XL sampler with full memory. That's what megged up means. You put more megabytes in it. The next step was to push my newfound capacity, which I did with Heart of the Sunrise, on one of the most dynamic songs in the defining period of Yes. The limitations I had of having no computer, and then in parentheses, just my MPC and a 16-track live desk, and none of the separate tracks, sampling off the vinyl. It helped me find a more progressive approach chronologically, working with the song so that each section had its own little remix. Getting all those samples in was a laborious process, but once they were in, it was all joy. Then he goes on to say, then came the moment of truth, playing the Heart of the Sunrise remix to my highly critical, all-constructive dad. He listened intently with a slightly bemused look on his face until the end, when he smiled and said, "You're crazy. Why don't you do some more?" That's great. I love it. So here they are. All that's left is for me to thank the Yes members, past and present, for all the inspiration you have given me and everyone else. Enjoy. Virgil Howe. You want to give thoughts or the track list first?
I think we should read what the track list is first.
Okay.
So
we don't need to read the writing credits. Just blow through.
Yeah, no, we're not reading the writing credits. So we got Tempest Fugit, Arriving UFO, Heart of the Sunrise, Starship Trooper, Awaken, Sound Chaser, Ritual, Siberian Katru, 5% for Nothing, No Opportunity Necessary, No Experience Needed, and No Clowns.
By the way, I would go to that concert. That's a killer freaking set list right there.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, like we got like a few things under here, but where do you want to begin with this?
Let's talk about first impressions. You go first.
Okay. So
how did it compare to what you expected, or did you have any preconceived expectation?
So when I remember many years ago, I did not own this album, so I went to Amazon and they had like the 30-second preview type of thing, and I listened to the previews for each of these tracks, and so I had somewhat of an idea of what to expect, and these pretty much were what I expected. The first listen earlier this week, throughout the whole album, it left me feeling like I thought, I enjoyed it, but it didn't give me like this like mind-blowing experience that I was expecting based on like what you had said. Like you'd listened to it before like I did, and other people's comments like made me think it would be I don't know what I was expecting, but yeah, like I enjoyed it, but then earlier today I listened to bits of it again and I was like, maybe I didn't like appreciate these enough. Like there's like some really great moments on these tracks. But what were your first impressions with this?
So I had no idea. Well, folks, it is major techno.
Yeah,
it is
techno.
Major techno. And that's such an understatement. There's so much else to it. It's dance, it's techno, maybe some house stuff mixed in and some genres I don't even know the name of, but they're all in that realm. And when I read the title, Yes Remixes, I thought, okay, the bass is going to be louder in this part.
Oh
And,
yeah.
that's what I thought.
Yeah,
And when,
see, growing up, I'm so used to the idea of remixes being like,
reworked.
yeah, reworked. Like, and I mean, Yes has done that before in the 80s, like during the Rabin period. You'd have like that version of Leave It where it's just like,
Right.
or like Owner of a Lonely Heart where it's just 7 minutes of doon, 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 doon.
And that's all Eddie
And just
Jobson.
distorted noises. Eddie Jobson. And like I also remember a version of Love Will Find a Way where it's extended, like it has extra drum machine stuff, like and like a salsa dance remix of Rhythm of Love. So like I'd heard stuff like that in full. But this was my first time listening to Yes Remixes,
and I had no idea. I had no idea, and I'm sure my face when it first started with Tempest Fugit, my face was in the shape of WTF. I'm sure of it. And I've never listened to techno. I don't go to clubs like that. I remember when I first met my wife, Enja, her daughter Sudi, for her 30th birthday, we went to a club like that, had this big party, and that music was there and way too loud, and it's just not my thing.
Yeah, like clubs aren't really my scene either. It's like it's too loud to be able to talk to people.
It's just that. But the music, I was just blown away. But I immediately fell in love with it. And I think the reason I fell in love with it was two things. I was deeply familiar with the music it was made from. And having done a lot of music production myself in the 80s and the 90s, I immediately appreciated how ridiculously laborious the work might have been. And that's before I knew what I just read from the liner notes, that he didn't have a computer and he didn't have the separate tracks, and he was doing it off vinyl. It's mind-blowing if you know anything about music production. Even with the most state-of-the-art, up-to-date Pro Tools stuff, it's a true work of art, and it also made me appreciate that genre. And I've listened to it a few times, and it's freaking mind-blowing. But I wonder what I would think if I didn't know any Yes music, whether I'm 58 and a half now or my 18-year-old self, what I would have thought of that. I probably wouldn't have given it a listen more than 30 seconds, my 18-year-old self. My older self, having been in production, like I said, maybe. But being that I am so familiar with the music, and to me, it's fascinating is the word I have. It's fascinating, but in a very positive way. Not fascinating like a train wreck that you have to stop and look at. Fascinating like I'm hearing colors I've never seen in music before.
Yeah, you're experiencing it in a completely new way.
Yeah, so we're finishing a movie, right? Enja and I, before I came in here. And I said, okay, I'm going to get up and go record with Steve. And I said, hey, are you into techno music at all? And she like shuddered and said, no. I'm not. I said, oh, okay, never mind. She said, why? And I said, I did. She said, well, I would listen to it for you. And I said, okay, I'll come back to it. So she's familiar with some Yes music, and I'm curious what her take would be, because it is more of an outside that bubble, view. Folks, I don't mean to just like dote over it so much, but I love it. And it's from a genre that's not even my thing. So I hope that says a lot. I just think it's amazing. I'll shut up now. Rare.
Yeah, and like looking at these tracks, like I think Tempest Fugit was just a no-brainer to include, in my opinion. It just, like, to me, it has that feel where it's like, oh yeah, you could definitely do something techno with that,
There's a new wave route to that,
Yeah, it starts with that dun 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 dun.
Don't spoil
it. Right, and
whatever you imagine, folks, from what we've just said, we can't quantify or really describe it to put the sound in your head. When you hear it, no matter what you're thinking, it's going to be a huge surprise.
Yeah, there's like Yeah, like there's some like echoing vocal stuff in that, and in some of the other tracks. Or you'd hear like a certain word being repeated over and over in a catchy way. Like on Starship Trooper, you'd hear follow, follow, follow. Like it, like out of context, it might make someone think of a record scratch type of
A
thing, but
skip, a skip.
yeah, Skip. But the way it's worked with the way he's put the music together, like it's creative. With Arriving UFO though, I could not take it oh so seriously, really. Kidding. It was good. Like there's some stuff on like little sounds here and there on Arriving UFO, Starship Trooper, and Awaken that make it sound like it has this sound that makes me think of lasers, like kind of more spacey. Like Virgil is he played keyboards and drums, so I kind of wonder if maybe he added some of that.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say, I believe it's very clear that he's working with a lot more than samples of the original
Right.
recordings. He's adding a lot of techno beats, like by hand on drum machines and sequencing, and I love it. I think it's great. Um, Heart of the Sunrise was very interesting because of the Francis Monkman influence. Um, no, I
Oh
mean
boy.
every song was a surprise because like you look at the songs and before they start and you say, okay, I know this song, let's see what he does with it. After the first one or two songs, when it's not anything you expected, like Idiot Me, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I guess the keyboards are going to be louder in this part, or the guitar lead will be loud. I thought that's what remix meant for this. But then when you get the hang of what he's doing, you go, okay, what's he going to do with this one? And like 5% for Nothing, what he did with that was,
Yeah. He made it 4 minutes and 40 seconds instead of just the 30 seconds.
yeah. And folks, maybe you could chime in on this. I tried to describe to Stephen um, an artist whose name I don't know. He's the DJ guy who did a mastery class with that class with that series of producers who makes master class with actors and writers and musicians and whatnot. And he wears the big robot mouse head. Um, Folks, I don't remember his name. My son-in-law is really into him because he does that kind of music. This kind of reminds me of that.
It's not
Take if
Chuck E. Cheese, right?
No, no, it's not Chuck E. Cheese or Mickey Mouse. Man, I should have asked Jimmy before we did this, but
Oh, okay. Looking at the image, it's like, yeah, I actually have seen this before.
what's his name?
So according to this, it's called Dead Mouse, but it's spelled DEADMAU 5, like the number five.
Yeah, and um, this is like in that vein, and it's that good where it sounds like someone with years of experience with this kind of work did it. It's that good. I hope I'm not over, no pun intended, hyping it, but it's I love it. Honestly, it resonated with me a lot more than Damien's. I'm not sure why. Maybe because there's more there, and it was just more intriguing to me as the set list goes on. I mean, again, from Tempest Fuga to Arriving UFO, Heart of the Sunrise, Starship Trooper, Awaken, Sound Chaser, Ritual, Siberian Katru. What's next? 5% for Nothing. No opportunity necessary, no experience needed, no clowns. I mean, it's just shout out to Damion in that one. Just mind blowing work. I'd love to hear more fan reviews of this who never heard of it before we did this.
Yeah, like I think out of these, my favorites ended up being the last two tracks, No Opportunity Necessary and No
Oh,
Clowns.
really?
Yeah, like I loved how No Opportunity it has this added drum beat, and like
Yeah.
the song, like the original, well, I guess not the original, but Yes's cover of that song as it appears on Time and a Word is already really fast paced. It gets you hyped up, and so the added drum beat like adds that extra step to it, like even more.
Yeah.
Um, and then No Clowns. well, like you alluded to, like Damion Anderson, we know spoke that section of Circus of Heaven on Tormato, which that album may have actually come out on his sixth birthday,
Oh,
possibly. Like, yeah, like some people are kind of not sure the exact date Tormato came out, but it could possibly have come out on that date. But
the
anyway,
tomato threw it off. No pun
yeah,
intended.
and so yeah, you get a sampling of his voice on there, but it also has bits of other Yes songs. I listed the ones I was able to catch here. So it has the footsteps from the end of We Have Heaven. It has a bit of And You and I, like the beginning, like okay, and like even that speaking right before it talks.
Yeah.
Roundabout, I've seen All Good People, Close to the Edge, Ritual, Sound Chaser, Gates of Delirium, Heart of the Sunrise, Parallels, The Fish, and like we said earlier, Circus of Heaven. Um, and like both of those last two tracks, No Opportunity and No Clowns, are tracks that I wish were longer. Like I would have loved hearing extended versions of those tracks. Um, but yeah, like I have some other thoughts, but did you want to like add anything before I add
Uh,
more?
yeah, I'll say that even though I've listened to the whole thing maybe 3 times, it's hard for me to pick a favorite. I think because being familiar with the original versions and with all the surprising twists and turns and remaking, I'm still like in fascination mode. I haven't really picked one. Um, but if I had to just off the top of my head, I love Siberian Katru because I've said it before. That album, the production is different from any other album I've ever heard, and it translates into that the choppy guitar and all that. So I love the Siberian Katru rework, Tempest Fugit, and Heart of the Sunrise. I'll go with those three are the ones that stick with me the most right now. But I love all of it. I really do.
Yeah, and there were actually sounds that I was surprised he didn't take advantage of. Like on Heart of the Sunrise, I thought that he would do something with the there's that part where it goes like do 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 do, but that gets crazier with the synthesizer. It's like like higher
I don't
pitch
know what
frequency.
part you mean.
Um, geez, I wish I could emulate it, but I can't. But
That's okay.
um, yeah, like just this part where that part gets more intense and sounds more electric. I was surprised he didn't do something with that.
Hmm.
I was also surprised he didn't really do much with the the intense drumming part toward the end of Ritual, where it gets like really spacey and
Oh, yeah.
intense. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of surprising. Did you have like any similar reaction, like something you were surprised he didn't like
No,
do more
because
with?
the whole thing took me by surprise so much that I didn't even like think of, oh, you should have like I was still just like, what the hell is this? This is amazing. Like who thinks of this? But obviously the Verge did. Just
Right.
yeah. It's very sad that he's not with us anymore. I would have
Right.
loved to hear more stuff like this done with music of other bands. Um, it's just a shame.
Yeah. Yeah, Virgil was a talented guy. Like that whole family was, and
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so I'm not sure if he ever wanted to do more remix albums or if this was just that itch he had to scratch. And after this one, he was just that was cool, but I'll
Yeah.
try other things. But who knows? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I think um, I don't know. Okay, so I wrote this down because I vaguely remembered you had a question. I can't remember if it pertained to this or something else.
Yeah.
But did you have like a question you want to ask me that, like,
Well, there
yeah,
was the issue of I mentioned that it makes sense that all the songs are from any Steve Howe era. Yes.
yeah,
But
except
very
No Opportunity, weirdly.
right, right. But very clearly he could have worked in things from Big Generator and 90125. They absolutely would have worked with this because of the more modern sounds and all that. But those two things could have been put on their own album, doing this. But
Right.
we don't have that, and that's okay. As far as a mystery question, am I forgetting something that I started to say to you the other day, and I said I'll save it for the show?
Maybe. Yeah, I came up with my own mystery
Okay.
question, and I was curious about whether it was the same thing you were gonna ask.
Okay. Go ahead.
So my question was, are there any other Yes songs that you'd love to see get a treatment similar to how Virgil handled these songs on Yes Remixes?
Yeah, definitely from the two albums I mentioned. And those songs would be Big Generator, the title track. Um, uh, I'm thinking through the albums. Sorry. Owner of a Lonely Heart is almost too obvious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's already like weird. Uh, what else is on that album? I know Changes, but that's a long time. Yeah, I guess Changes, and also
Yeah, I think Changes could have something cool done with it.
yeah, and maybe because of the odd slower tempo, Hearts would have been interesting. And the one they never played live, do 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 do.
Our song?
Yeah, I love that song, by the way. I wish they would have played it live.
Yeah, they only played it live once or a couple times, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, Rhythm of Love definitely could have been a masterwork of his.
Yeah, I could have even remixed the like orchestral sounding opening.
Oh wow, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Or even with Love Will Find a Way in that case, yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, those two albums alone could have been a whole other album for him.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if he also considered remixing anything from the very first Yes album. Like, thinking to the tracks on that, I think Looking Around would have been a good choice.
Yes. Sweet Dreams?
Well, Sweet Dreams is on Time and a Word,
but that's right.
Maybe he could have done something with that. Because, like, Sweet Dreams, compared to much of the rest of Time and a Word, it feels kind of too normal to me, for lack of a better word. Like, it feels like more could have been done with it. So maybe that could have gotten a treatment. Astral Traveler, I think, could have had something cool done with it.
How about anything
from Survival? But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Anything from Talk?
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, I was gonna like go into like the '90s and beyond, like deeper stuff, and try to think of like, so
State of Play.
Yeah, State of Play. Maybe bits of Endless Dream.
Yeah.
I mean, even on Union, you might be able to pull something like maybe. I mean, Dangerous is probably an obvious one. It already has like a club mix somewhere.
I would have waited forever. The opening track with those vocals and cutting it off, and thinking of how he worked some of the songs.
Yeah, maybe like the opening vocals, instead of being super loud and abrupt, maybe with faded in, like away for like going back and forth or something. Miracle of Life, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
I think that is from Keys to Ascension could have had cool stuff done with it, because it already has that fast pace and like there's cool stuff that can be done with that.
And I'm sorry, remind me, what year did this come out?
Yes Remixes came out 2003.
So he was 21. He was born in 72, wasn't he?
Virgil was born in 75. So
Damion
would have been 28.
Okay. So dare I say that let me think of the set list of what I'm thinking of. Hold on, folks. Just hold on.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'll mention a few other songs I think could get the remix treatment and sound cool. A New State of Mind, I think, would be really cool.
That's what I'm looking for. The Open Your Eyes set list. And that's
Oh
the
wow.
first song I was trying to think of.
Oh, the
Yeah.
track list. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to think of like what's on the ladder that could be cool.
Ba-dum bum boom, ba-dum bum ba da ba.
Oh, the
Tribute to
Messenger.
Bob Marley.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
yeah. And
Yeah, State of Play, and also maybe
maybe
something more spacey, Universal Garden, Fortune Cellar, which I love. I love
yeah,
every time I talk to Billy, I tell him what a genius production job he did on that
yeah.
song. I just love it.
Maybe Dreamtime from Magnification.
Ooh, ooh, wow! And it could have like a digital version of the end of Magnification with the orchestra falling down the stairs. Um, yeah, there's so much we can, the what could have been. And folks, if you're not familiar with the album, when you hear it, you'll understand what Steve and I are talking about. You might even want to listen to this again just for more context. Fascinating. That's my one word for it. Fascinating.
Yeah, and I mean, there's even stuff from like the Yes catalog from beyond when this was done. Like we can think back, like, oh, he could have done Mind Drive, but like people could try giving some of the later stuff this type of treatment, with like Fly From Here, maybe some stuff with that epic, Subway Walls, To the Moment from a Page. Maybe the Ice Bridge. Maybe there'll be some stuff on the Quest. We'll think, oh, this could get like a really cool remix treatment.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like if there's anything that you listeners think would be cool to hear get a similar type of remix treatment, like let us know. Email us at yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com.
And you can always also comment on our posts on the video version or audio versions on the Anchor network of podcasts that we're on. That's anchor.com/anchor.fm/Yesshift.
Yeah.
And on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Yesshift. We'd love to get your feedback. We'd love to get emails from you. We're open to ideas for episodes. We've gotten a few from you already that we got to catch up on. And thanks for following what we do. It's your show too. So give us your feedback, give us ideas. And in October, we're going to start reaching out to band members and other people who have worked with Yes at different capacities, whether on artwork and in the periphery there. Yes Tour.
Yeah. So this podcast episode, it was okay, but there are no clowns or lions or tigers or bears or candy floss, toffee apples, no clowns. Talk about first world problems. Am I right? You go to this circus that has like unicorns and stuff, and like there are these things that you're hoping, you're just thinking, oh, it was okay with all this magical stuff.
You know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like a lot of disgruntled so-called Yes fans not getting what they expect on certain albums. That's what that sounds like to me. There's always a unicorn in everything. We just have to spot it, and it might not resonate with us, but it doesn't mean you have to be bummed out that there's no clowns, no bears, no tigers, no candy floss.
Right. But just one more week, or I guess slightly less than a week before the Quest comes out. So I'm excited for that, and we'll definitely talk about that. And thanks for listening.
Yeah, I want to play it backwards and see what messages Francis Monkman embedded into the vinyl version.
Right, that'll be our side quest, sure.
For sure. Thanks everybody so much, and we will see you on the next one.